On Production is brought to you by Wrapbook, the production industry's only on-demand payroll platform. With Wrapbook, you can pay your crew with a click and track all your costs in real time, all in one place. To find out more about how Wrapbook is transforming the way productions pay their crews, visit wrapbook.com.
Welcome back to On Production, a podcast brought to you by Wrapbook. Today, we're diving into one of the toughest areas for producers today, navigating the complexities of paying union workers, staying compliant, and keeping budgets accurate and on track. Our guest today is Ida Lee Henderson, a widely respected production accountant whose career has spanned both film and television across the globe. She's worked on films like Rudy and Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, as well as acclaimed television series like Brothers and Sisters and more. Beyond her on-set expertise, she's become a mentor and teacher, training countless accountants who've gone on to become leaders in the industry. Ida Lee brings a rare combination of hands-on experience and a deep commitment to training the next generation of production accountants. Today, she joins us to share her perspective on the financial realities of what shapes every production, from navigating union rules to keeping payroll and budgets on track. And also, of course, how producers can set themselves up for long-term success. Welcome to the show, Ida Lee.
Thank you, Cameron. It's really great to be here.
Let's start with your background. What first drew you to production accounting, and how did your career evolve from major studio films to then mentoring others in the field?
Well, what drew me to production accounting is I love film. I am a huge old movie buff. I would actually, even in grade school, sometimes I would ditch school and stay home and watch all the afternoon movies. I love movies. And so I actually joined the industry kind of later in life. I was in my, I was about 30. And I just decided I had bookkeeping. I had a degree in business administration, and I had bookkeeping background, and everybody needs bookkeepers. So maybe I could do that in this area that I love. And one thing led to another, and here I am. The main thing about production accounting for me is that it never gets boring. Bookkeeping for a large company, I had moved up to being a controller for a company that had retail outlets in 4 states, and it just was boring. Learning the latest cash register innovation really, just wasn't very exciting. So for me, the reason I've been in it over 30 years is because it's always new and interesting and exciting. I have to learn something on every single project that I do. So I just love it.
And the second part of my question was, how did that then evolve into you being such a well-known mentor in the community?
Well, I did have some background in teaching adult education classes and managing your personal finances and things like that before I ever came into the business. And once I did come into the business, I saw there was very little consistency. People tend to learn from whoever got them started in the business. And sometimes they think that way is the only way because they just haven't been exposed to other ways of doing it. With my, you know, background as a corporate controller, and just the fact that I constantly am thinking, what's a more efficient way to do that? I would often be able to find ways for people to do their jobs more easily. And that just led into teaching them that and then teaching the next step. And, people would come to me and tell me that they wanted to do what I do. They wanted to, we used to call it sit in the big chair. I want to sit in the big chair. And, uh, uh, and I love that. People who are ambitious and want to learn, I want to teach. So I just enjoyed that, and it's still extremely gratifying to me, all the people out there in the business who, you know, take the time to let me know the impact I've made on their career. It's just part of who I am, I guess is how you could say it.
That's awesome, Ida Lee. So pivoting back a little bit to your career as, the accountant in the big chair, as you said, I know that you've been able to work internationally across film and television. And you even mentioned just a moment ago that, you're constantly learning. Every production is sort of different. What unique challenges would you say that you've seen when it comes to managing budgets and payroll across such production environments?
Well, one of the challenges, the best way to budget and to manage a production is to think ahead as much as you can to anticipate what you may encounter along the way and be prepared for it before it comes. Sometimes in our environment, that's not possible. There can be a last minute change that, you may have been going along this path. We're going to film this project. with these people in this place, and that's what you've been budgeting for 6 months. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we just got this incentive in this other country. And so now we're going there. And so you don't have as much time to gear up and be as prepared as you can, both, the producers, the studio, everybody. When you make a sharp pivot. And again, the way that I try to do everything is just to learn as much as I can and get in front of it. If I'm going to a different country, what is their incentive? What are the rules of their incentive? What are the crews like? How do they pay? People are paid very differently in different parts of the world. You just have to try to get in front of the information flow as best you can and adapt as quickly as you can. Even under, I mean, that's the name of our business, right? Constant adaptation, constant change. So, I think sometimes people get locked in, oh my god, now we have to pivot, and they get locked in the upset about that rather than just taking it and moving on and, "Okay, now what do we need to learn?" So, just, being quick on your feet is the best way to cope with any of it, yeah.
That seems to be a real and true trait regardless of the role that a person has on set, whether they're in the production team, the production accounting team, regardless. One of the biggest stress points that I've heard come up over and over again for producers is, maybe this is no surprise being that I work at an independent payroll company, but it's along the lines of figuring out how to ensure compliance when paying union workers. From your perspective, though, in the field, what makes that such a persistent challenge?
Well, again, first and foremost, it's that thinking ahead. The studio, the accounting team, the producing team, they have to be in front of it and know which contracts are we operating under, right? I've seen shows get set up in payroll under the complete wrong contract. And then your first batch of payroll comes through and it's like, what is this? This should be after, 12 hours worked, not 12 hours elapsed or, whatever this issue may be. So the biggest issue I've seen with compliance is just making sure you all are on the same page as to what contracts are being followed. Is it high budget SVOD? Is it just the basic? What is it? Which contract are we using? So that's first and foremost. I found once you have that established, I really haven't ever had any problems with compliance. The only other issues with compliance are timely, right? Certainly, we have to pay payroll on time. And if we don't, then we open ourselves to grievances from the various locals. So the next biggest challenge is kind of falls on accounting shoulders. We have to do whatever we can to pay people on time. And I've seen in the past few years some people have been like, we have to get the crew paid, right? Because they're going to show up every day. But the actors sometimes don't know because their checks go to their agents and they may not know. And so we'll maybe put SAG aside and pay them late. But, again, SAG is on top of it and you're going to get huge penalties if you do that. So, yeah, compliance is our responsibility as well. And of course, the bulk of it, though, does fall on the payroll company and making sure, I've gotten that notification before, DGA saying that the contributions haven't been made on behalf of the employees on a particular show. And, we have to obviously dig in and find out what the problem was. 95% of the time they have been paid. It just hasn't been recorded. I know Wrapbook and the other payroll companies understand their responsibility with compliance. And I personally, I haven't had issues on the payroll side.
Well, Ida Lee, you wouldn't, but our audience is for producers who may. So, and to that effect, I mean, you and I think, both know, but for the sake of our audience or for those that are curious, you know, there can be ripple effects that are the result of inaccurate rates or budgeting mistakes. Can you share examples from, your just experience in this field, certainly, of course, not your own productions, but what you've heard from students or others of how even small errors in budgeting or rate setting can impact a production?
Yeah, again, it goes back to the same thing. We all have to know what contract we're using and make sure you've budgeted for that contract and that everybody knows. It's one thing if the accountant has the budget right, but the people on the front line hiring, the production manager and department heads don't. Right? So it can get very confusing. And sometimes we'll have employees come in and say, no, that's not my rate. This is my rate. Okay, well, this is what your union tells us is your scale. I'm a big one for, we're very fortunate that we help each other and we have great tools that help us to know rates. But just because it's in a tool doesn't mean it's correct. I'm a big person for if you're going somewhere, get and read the contract. If you're a smaller independent production and you are actually negotiating the contract, make sure you have another contract as your guide and that you're hitting all of those key points in your negotiation so that there isn't a question about how people are to be paid in future. What is the rest period? What are the meal penalties? Do you go into overtime after so many hours worked, or is it elapsed? Which is it? The clearer that management can get from day one, the less likely it is that you're going to have any issues.
Ida Lee, I think that you've spoken to this just a moment ago, but I'll rephrase the question because I think that there's an insight here that I'm really trying to get to for the production audience here, which is, you know, you mentioned, of course, work with a great accountant, work with a good payroll company so that you really flatten the chance for these sort of compliance issues to emerge. But are there any practical steps or things that you've seen in your career that you would say really allow the relationship with the production accounting office and the production team's office to like work really well together? Like, what's your operating procedure between production and the accounting office to make sure that a production, regardless of its scale, like operates really well?
That's a really good point. We do have to work as a team, and unfortunately, sometimes the production and accounting will take an adversarial kind of pose. So for me, when I start on any production, the first people that I have to, really get teamwork with is the production manager, the production office coordinator, and their staff, and make sure that we really are listening to one another and understanding each other's needs. I as a lead accountant, I meet with obviously the UPM every day, the production office coordinator at least once a day, and I meet with the department heads and the people who are hiring in the field as well, the best boys, the department heads. I go out and create a relationship with those people so that they know if they do have a question, they can call me or they can call our payroll accountant and get answers from us, that we're there to serve them, we're there to help them, that there's no way it goes smoothly unless we all work together. So relationships, and relationships are everything in our business, honestly. And believe me, over the years, I've gotten that very wrong at times and have paid for it and learned better. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a sort of a production payroll accounting nerd, but in a previous life before being a nerd on these subjects, I would make commercials and I would do some short films. And as I personally have come to learn more about this body of work, it's like I think a lead accountant, like somebody like you on a large production, is like the first AD. It's not moving human resources around on schedule and on budget. It's like overseeing the entire flow of funds across this entire massive operation. And I make that relationship because I think, like, in a producer's mind, you're like, well, of course, the first AD is like so important to the production, which is like, yes, that's obvious. But so too, like, if you have a great accounting organization, it's just as essential. It's just as important. It's just as like directly responsible for getting to the end of the production in a really powerful and successful way. And it is what we're saying, trust.
Yeah, and it's our job to make sure that everybody on that production have the financial tools that they need to do their jobs. The last thing they should be having to stress about or worry about is, are they getting their paycheck, or is their P card maxed out, or any of those things. If an accounting stays in front of that and really takes the point of view of like, listen, I'm here to make your life easier, not harder. And yes, we have protocols that have to be followed. You have to fill out start paperwork in order for me to pay you. I'm sorry, but it has to be done. And you need to turn in your receipts and reconcile your P card in order for me to be able to refresh it. But if we come at them with more of a, what is the obstacle? How can I help overcome that? What can we do to make this happen so that we can give you what you need and you no longer have to worry about this stuff? That's a big part of it. Again, is that cooperation and relationship, which is part of why I go meet with people and get a one-on-one relationship as best I can, because they're much more likely to say, "Oh, accounting doesn't mean to be a pain, but yeah, we have to do this thing, so let's just get it done." If they have a relationship with you rather than, demonize as, "Why do they make everything so hard?" You know?
So you've trained and mentored many production accountants. What skills or habits do you believe are most essential for accountants and producers to build strong, compliant financial practices?
The other, or another skill that is just required is, again, trying to get in front of things as much as possible, anticipating what's going to happen. I'm a big one for saying to my team, hey, this isn't our first rodeo. We know what's going to happen. People are going to come in and say, well, I can't do this. Well, let's take care of that. Let's anticipate that. Let's make sure that we meet that need before they even have it. So anticipating and just adaptability, being able to, yes, you had this in mind and that's the direction you're going. And then, I've been places where we went to a location because of a tax incentive, for example, and we were told that there was sufficient crew, and then you get there and there aren't crew, and you end up having to bring people in at the last minute and deal with the challenges that brings, finding housing, making sure that maybe you didn't even have a contract with that particular union that you need that person from, because now you have to bring them from LA and you thought you were going to have a complete ASA crew, things like that. Anticipate as much as you can, research as much as you can, but be able to adapt on a dime in a not panicked way. If that makes sense, in a way that people feel, hey, yes, this is a left turn, but we got this. Together we can do this. We got this. Instead of, I've seen some people rant and rave and run out of offices. And, we all have emotions, especially in this business, because there can be some very, very high stress situations, but as best we can. Believe me, again, a lifelong lesson here. I wasn't always able to do that either. So I'm not throwing any stones here.
Ida Lee, this industry is always evolving. How have you seen technology change the way production accountants and producers approach compliance, budgeting, rate management, the whole kit and caboodle?
Well, it has changed a lot, and it did not change fast enough, in my opinion. There were digital processes available to us that we could have tried and experimented with and had our growing pains with prior to the pandemic. But, this industry is also very slow to change. It's very hard. What we have to come in, hit the ground running, get it done really fast. So when you talk about changing technology for people, they get frightened by that. They don't want to change accounting software. They don't want to change payroll providers. I know people who have worked their entire career at one studio, even though they're earning less than their counterparts elsewhere, just because they don't want to change. So technology is very challenging for us. Obviously, COVID brought tremendous changes in how our workflow functions. And I think at first people thought, oh, it's just going to be a couple of months and then I'm going to go back to doing it the way that I used to. And as we all know, that did not happen. And the digital storage and all of that is here to stay. I personally was a huge advocate for digital start paperwork years before that, and trying to get people to give it a try, simply because, again, I think efficiently. How efficient is it when you have to hire someone in payroll, a second clerk, just to run around and track after people to try to get their paperwork done? Oh, hey, you turned everything in, but you don't have your box rental inventory, and so you have to chase after them. How crazy is it that you have to hire an extra person in the payroll department and maybe a second clerk just to run around after people to get the forms they haven't filled out yet? It happened over and over again, and I kept saying, if we used digital start work, they couldn't move on to the next step until they had done that. So I'm a big proponent. So I'll just say that up front, because I know some people are not, and they find these tools cumbersome and difficult. And frankly, they have been at first. You have one login for your purchase order program, and one login for your signature approvals, and another one for the payroll, the digital payroll. And it was really hard on accounting to learn and adapt to all these tools. But it was equally hard on the producers and the production managers who were trying to keep up with all of the paperwork they're responsible for viewing and approving. And not, like, oh God, which one is it? And many times I would have to, come into the producer's office and show them the login again, and how to filter it down to just the ones they needed to approve, and things like that. So obviously the benefit, though, is, your production manager, who might be out on a scout all day, and in the old days they'd come back to a stack 3 feet high of things to approve. But now they can do it on their iPad, sitting on the bus between locations. So it's been really good and very difficult for people to adapt. There are technological changes absolutely coming in accounting. The next big one that I see happening as soon as we can get it to where it's somewhat affordable is invoice matching. Again, this is something that has been with large companies for many years where they have a company mailbox. The vendors send their invoices into that mailbox. The mail is opened with artificial intelligence, and the invoice is viewed. The invoice is matched to a PO, and if it matches the PO, it goes straight through for payment because the PO has the approvals. And if it doesn't match, then that gets filtered off to where a human can then pick it up and resolve the problems. So that's the next big shift that I see happening.
That one's certainly coming, and we have that at Wrapbook. I think others will follow, and it does make sense because AP automation is in other corporate accounting solutions. It's in other AP automation flows. But yeah, you're right. Both the PO approval flow from the origination point on set, flowing all the way through to the production accounting system rather than being two separate POs, one, and then two, like project-based invoice inboxes where then you can like pull in the header information off of a PDF. Like you're totally right. Like this process of having multiple clerks sitting there and just entering in not just double times, sometimes quadruple times, right? Like a production PO to an accounting PO to like it's sort of unbelievable that the friction in that workflow.
Yeah, sometimes I look back on the way we did it when I first started, and it's shocking we got anything done. It really is. So, yeah, that's a big one, and then automating the filing system as well. These systems will be able to put the invoices directly into your accounting system. I mean, I love the idea that in future, you won't have to go to Box or any other place to look for stuff. If you're in your accounting system, you just click on that vendor, everything will be there, whether it's paid or pending, and we'll have it all at our fingertips. That's the future.
We call it OCR, but that's basically AI or machine learning or optical character recognition. Like it should also tell you like, hey, the receipt that you attached to this invoice and purchase order is the wrong one. Like, yes, humans need to be fully in control to be able to approve all of it. But like if we had smart notifications and smart like alerts to the production accounting team, it can save so much time and so much pain.
Absolutely. And I've been around a long time, and in my experience, innovation in our industry comes slowly, at least on the infrastructure side. It's really fast on the creative side, but on the infrastructure side, it comes slowly. And I know AI is going to enable us to have a lot of systems function more easily. But at the same time, I keep saying, I'm not going to worry about AI until I can ask one of my voice controlled devices a question and they actually know what I'm talking about. When that happens, when that part becomes really easy, then I'll start to worry about where AI is going. But until then,
Not there yet. Yeah.
not there yet. They're not that smart yet.
So talking about digital transformation at Wrapbook, we just launched an online rate finder tool to help producers or accountants look up union rates really quickly. From your opinion, why is having like a fast, accurate access to something like that valuable to a producer or to an accountant?
Well, the most valuable thing about that is the fact that we are often asked to do a budget quickly, right? There's a project that's being considered, and the producer or production manager, or they may even bring an accountant in early to do the first pass on that budget. Where is it at? Where are we going to? Which contract are we under? And I know when I'm doing a budget, I spend the first few days often trying to get the information that I need so that I can then start to create the budget. But when it is readily available and you can just hop online and get it, makes all the difference in the world. I can start working right away. Now, obviously, the trick about that is many productions, especially independent productions, may be making their own contracts, so it's not quite so easy for them. But even in that situation, even if you're a producer trying and you're going to go in and negotiate with the local union, you have access to what are the scale rates currently? What benefits are they receiving? When I go into my negotiation, how can I be as informed as possible to try to get the best deal that I can for my particular production. So yeah, it's invaluable.
I think that's a really good point. Like even in a world where a side letter is written, it's a one-off negotiation, like knowing at least the base reality of published rates is probably a really good way or a good tool to at least start working on your budget. Because then downstream of that, where should we consider going for incentives? What what do we think we should do around just resource allocation across the entire picture rather than just in this one sort of area? So that makes a lot of sense. Ida Lee, for listeners who'd like to learn more about you or connect further, where's the best place to find you and your work?
Well, you can obviously, I'm on LinkedIn. And for my educational programs, it's called the School of Production Accounting. And that's at www.schoolofpa.com.
Awesome, Ida Lee. It's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining me on Production. I really appreciate you're such a thoughtful person and you know so much about this subject. So it's always invaluable time spent. So thanks so much.
Oh, well, thanks, Cameron. It's been great having this time and getting to share more. I love it.
On Production is brought to you by Wrapbook. With automated time card calculations, real-time production accounting, and payroll you can run with just a click, Wrapbook makes it easier than ever to manage your entire production from one login. To learn more about how Wrapbook is transforming payroll and production accounting, check out our website at wrapbook.com.